Welcome to Sark Sessions. I'm your host, Sonya Locke, and this girl is on fire. Today we are sitting down with a woman who has not only redefined what it means to wear a crown, but how to carry it with grace and purpose. Jackie Watson is the CEO and founder of USA National Miss Organization, and under her leadership, she has seen thousands of women step into their confidence and calling. She didn't inherit a legacy. She built one from the ground up. What started as a mother's love turned into a nationwide movement called Positive Pageantry. And today we get to uncover the stories behind the crown, the culture, and the courage that it took to build it. First of all, Jackie, thank you so much for being here. I am so excited to talk about your story and everything that you've accomplished and how many young women that you have just built into confidence.
Thank you so much.
I just want to say cheers.
Cheers to 15 years of doing
this. And congratulations
Thank
again.
you.
I cannot wait to start unpacking the story.
It's quite interesting, I might add.
I bet.
Yes, I'm excited to share it with you. Thank you for having me.
So every moment begins with a spark, something that is missing, a problem that you're trying to solve. Yours started with your daughter walking on the stage.
Yes.
What was it that led to you creating this whole pageantry and led to this movement? What did you see that was missing?
So my daughter wanted to do pageants when she was 9. I was like, absolutely not. We are not doing that. All I had in my mind was, I knew there was Miss America, and then I knew there was, like, what do you call it? The toddler and tiara type of pageants, the glitz, like the things that you see in the news, and John Benet Ramsey. Growing up listening to that story just really petrified me for children being in that kind of spotlight. But she had a little friend that was doing pageants, and her mom set me aside and said, let her do it. I promise you it's not what you see on toddlers and tiaras and TV and all of that. And no offense to toddlers and tiaras, I have some friends that did that and great people. But anyhow, she decided she wanted to do it. She was really shy. And her friend encouraged her. And also, I was a writer at the time for the Gwinnett Daily Post. And one of my stories was to cover the Miss Gwinnett County's Outstanding Teen. And so when I called Miss Gwinnett County Outstanding Teen to set up my interview, she needed to do it after hours. I said, well, I'll have my kids. Is that okay? And she said, sure. So I had Kayla there with me. And when she saw her, she was instantly drawn to her and said, she's so beautiful. You need to put her in pageants. And I was like, okay, there's something to this that keeps coming back up. So when the next pageant came around that my daughter's friend was going to do, she invited her to come do it. And I reluctantly said yes. Pleasantly surprised to find some of the most incredible families and mothers and daughters really enjoying themselves, seeing how they were embracing the femininity, they were embracing the whole princess vibe. Keep in mind, she was 9 at the time, so she loved all of that. And we were hooked. Instantly, I was hooked. I'm like, this is a whole new world that opened up for me and her. I had no idea existed. And so she continued to do pageants and was very successful. And what I found was that she was able to develop a lot of confidence. She was able to be a little less shy, like I saw her coming out of her shell. But what I noticed was missing from the time that she won a pageant to the next year where she came and crowned her successor, there was a whole year. And during that whole year, we sometimes didn't even see the director, didn't hear from them, had no interaction there. And I thought, wow, this is such a wasted opportunity to really mentor these young women and help them develop into, serving their communities and finding their voice and finding their passion. I began doing that for her during the times that she would win. I would book her for parades and for going to the nursing homes and, just really getting her out there to serve with her title and helping her to see that when you have a crown on your head, it's not about you, it's about other people and what that crown represents and what you can do through that crown to shine light, not on you, but on your passions and your callings. So I realized that was missing in all of these different pageants that we went to. And don't get me wrong, there may have been one or two directors that, really did take an interest in her and try to be that. But there was such a divide between pageantry at the time, what was the norm, which is, oh, congratulations, you won, see you next year. And there was such a far cry from where it needed to go. And I just really felt extremely passionate. Honestly, I feel like God called me and said, you can do this and you can implement that into what you do. So being the go-getter that I am, I jumped straight into it and, created Georgia Christian pageant system and held local titles and the big state pageant. I say big, there may have been like 20 girls there. I don't know. It was a long time ago. But through it all, I learned a lot. Like, I learned what not to do. I learned, that actually putting on the pageant was really, really difficult. And where my passion was the 364 days in between the crowning and the giving up of the crown. That's where my passion lied. So I learned a lot about administration, putting on events, how to manage things, how to secure sponsors and all of that. But honestly, I tell people all the time, I feel like I failed in that endeavor. Eventually, I ended up giving it to a friend. And that failure, what I perceived as a failure, because I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. It was way too much. I wanted to just invest in the girls. Okay. And in my stage of life that I was in, my son was still young. We were talking about this earlier. You don't have a lot of time as a mom with young kids. So I found myself not able to do it the way I felt in my heart and in my vision that I wanted it to go. So fast forward, probably about, 10 years, maybe not even that long, but around 10 years later, kids are older, that passion is still in there. And I'm like, it's time. I can do this. Like, I'm at a stage of life now where I can do this and I can make it what I feel in my heart it needs to be, not only through the experience of what I did before, but also, just having my daughter continue through pageants and learning from all the different experiences that she had. As a mom, what did I feel was lacking? What did I like? What did I not like about the experience for her? And so I was able to really craft a vision of what I wanted my pageant to be based on my own experience with her, she won all the way up to international titles. So it was quite the learning experience to get to that point. And that's how I decided what I wanted it to look like. And realizing and honing in on what's missing, was able to really fine-tune that message of what I wanted it to be and what it needed to be to really impact the girls.
And so her calling kind of became your calling.
Yes.
In a totally different way.
Yes.
And what was some of the things that were missing? What was your vision? What did you see that this could be?
So a couple of things that stick out, as I mentioned before, is that there was not enough interaction with the leaders of the organizations, with the young girls that were serving. I felt like there was this mentorship aspect that was really missing, vastly missing from this experience. I also felt that there was a lot of competition. There's a lot of different pageants out there. And so, for example, when she was in the Miss America organization, or if she was in another organization, like we were told, oh, you can't have her take pictures with that girl because she represents a different organization. And I was like, no, that's just so wrong. Like, these girls should be supporting one another. They should be making friends and supporting each other in their journey, whether it's this pageant or another pageant is irrelevant. What color their banner is should not matter. They're on the same trajectory of self-development and serving their communities. They should be able to commingle. So that stood out as, that was a big no-no for me, really a big no-no that sparked the positive pageantry movement. That's really where that stems from, because it was very toxic in that regard. It pitted girls against each other. Just did not sit right with me.
And positive pageantry is not only a movement, it is a term that you really coined.
Yes.
Yes. So let's talk about positive pageantry and what that really means, breaking down those barriers, building that sisterhood.
The sisterhood is the best part. Well, there's two best parts of pageantry: the skills you learn that help you through life, but the sisterhood There's nothing like that. Especially in today's world, young women really do need to have a place where they feel that they belong, that they're accepted and that they're cherished, and that they have a voice. And that's what Positive Pageantry does. Positive Pageantry is a movement to bring people from different pageant organizations together and should put aside the divisions that used to exist. They still do in a way. I feel like sometimes with Positive Pageantry, you make 3 steps forward and then it's 2 steps back sometimes. But for the most part, the contestants from all of walks of different pageants have really embraced the Positive Pageantry philosophy, which is supporting one another, not looking down on someone. For example, there might be different hierarchies of pageant organizations. Some are small, some are big, and not looking down on, if someone won a local pageant versus someone who won a national pageant, lift them both up at the same level because they're both representing great qualities that we need young women in today's society to represent. So that was one of the biggest things for me, is making sure these girls knew, like, hey, take that picture with that girl, post her on your social media. That's okay. It was unheard of when I got started with this. But one of the things we do at USA National Miss that I love doing every year at Nationals is we actually invite girls from all different pageants to come to the pageant, and we give them a moment to stand up where we honor them and say, we are so thankful you're here. We see you. We recognize all of your different titles. You're a big deal. Keep doing what you're doing, and really encouraging them. It doesn't matter that they're not doing my pageant. They're putting themselves out there, trying to become a better version of themselves, trying to have the courage to find their passion and their voice and to impact their communities. That should be celebrated no matter what pageant they're doing.
And let's talk about those points, the skills they learn and what they do represent. I know your crown has 5 points.
Yes.
What are those 5 points, and what are those skills that you develop with your?
So the 5 points of the crown is based on Colossians 3:12, which is compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. And those are the qualities that we hope that a girl that comes through our program can develop through her title. And also, we always tell the girls that wear the crown, like, remember that you're wearing that. And you're not going to always be good at all 5 of those. Like, I joke that I'm really bad with patience. Like, that's not my thing. I'm still working on that piece of the crown for me, but it's a work in progress. That's the whole point of pageantry, is a self-development and being the best version of yourself today, and try tomorrow to be an even better version of yourself. And while you do that, you give back to your community and you find your voice and find your passion. So to me, the biggest skills that girls gain from doing pageants are the communication skills, the interpersonal skills, and the ability and the courage to find your voice and find your passion and really advocate for those things that are important to you. A lot of times young women feel like they have no voice or their voice doesn't matter. And I feel like even if you touch one person through your advocacy work, that you've just made a huge impact that can have a ripple effect. So to me, those are the greatest things that you can gain. For example, my daughter, she has been able to see that, through watching my experience with USA National Miss, she's been able to see that no matter what obstacles that you have, if you find your passion and you find your voice and you go and do it, you can make a ripple effect. You shouldn't be afraid to put yourself out there. Interview skills, you will get every job that you interview for if you're a pageant girl, because those interview skills are just top notch. Also the interpersonal skills, the ability to really feel comfortable in the presence of others, is a skill that is not often talked about, but it's such a crucial skill in, for example, in the job market. If you're in a job where you need to be in front of people, as they get older, those are really important things, how you're able to connect. And all of that is learned through interview and the skills that you learn from putting yourself out there.
Everything you just said was so beautiful, and all of the skills that not only your girls get, but the hallmarks of what makes them a winner, right? Mm-hmm. and it was about interpersonal skills, and it was about servitude, and it was about sisterhood and getting along with others and everything else. The one thing you didn't even say or mention was it was about beauty.
Right.
It was so much more than that.
Yes.
You know? So, but the other part, what you were also talking about, was building a voice for these girls and them having a confidence to be able to make changes and take challenges and have risk and that. And you certainly did that with building this.
Absolutely did.
Let's talk about the burn. Let's talk about how your work with USA National Miss helps with building their confidence to overcome challenges and what that means.
Yes, absolutely. So, oh my goodness, I could probably write a book. I probably should write a book about this one day. But it was certainly not challenge-free when I started the organization. I guess I need to backtrack a little bit. I am the first generation American daughter of Cuban immigrants who came to the country. Oh my goodness, my mother was pregnant with me. She didn't even know that I was on the way when they fled communism in Cuba under hardship. So they came to the United States legally. All of my life has been a challenge in terms of imagine being a 7-year-old and having to translate for your parents when you're at the bank. Little things like that lead you to be a very resilient person and understand that challenges aren't going to define you. They can only break you if you let them break you, and you've got to keep pushing ahead. All of my life, it's been like that. Just grew up very, very humble circumstances with my family. As an immigrant family, we didn't have much. We were very different. Everything about my life growing up was different. So becoming an entrepreneur and starting my own organization is just not something that I ever thought that was possible for me. But my experiences watching my mother and my father face obstacles and keep pushing through despite whatever obstacle came their way really propelled me to know there is no limit to what you can do. And when I started the organization, I had absolutely $0 to start it. I really just leaned on my faith in God because I really felt strongly that He was calling me to do this. Like I was meant to do this, that this was something I needed to do. I was born to do this. And that was not always met with very positive reactions from some of what you would consider the competition, other pageants out there. So when I first started it, I was severely bullied online by other pageant directors. It was quite bad. In fact, a lot of times we tell people, don't let them know they got to you. I say, no, let people know they got to you, because then hopefully it will challenge them to be better human beings and be kinder, because that's what we want to teach these girls is the crown is going to last a year, but what you develop in yourself is going to last you a lifetime. This is why character matters so much, and the 5 points of the crown matter so much, because we're not really hoping to build queens here. We're hoping to build good human beings that we send out into the universe, right? So I was met with bullying. I was met with so many different challenges, but I kept pressing on because I leaned on my faith, knowing that I have a great friend once said to me, in fact, she was one of the Miss America queens that I became good friends with, and she said to me, God had a plan for you before anybody had an opinion about it. And that always stuck with me, because I'm like, you know what? That's true. God had a plan for me before anyone else had an opinion about what I was doing. So you've got to drown out that noise, and you've got to drown out any negativity that comes your way, and just stay tunnel focused on what you feel God has led you to do. In this case, with me, it was starting the organization. And for girls, it would be, don't let society put you in that box. You are free to come out of that box and chase your passions and use your voice and advocate for things that are important to you. Be a good human being. Like, you are not just here to look pretty in a crown and a dress. There's so much more that we can really implement into these girls to teach them to love themselves the way they are, drown out that negativity, because they're going to get it. Everyone's going to get it from somewhere. And to really just proceed knowing that as long as you're good with God and you're following the path and the direction, you're going to be unstoppable. There's nothing that's going to stop you. And that's really how I feel with the organization, through the ups and downs of some of the really negative moments that, I felt, man, this is just such a horrible feeling. I just want everyone to like each other. I'm a people pleaser. I want everyone to get along and be happy. And, to face so much criticism and negativity really broke me for a while. But God would place the right thing at the right time to show me, don't think about it. Keep going. Just keep going. There is a purpose and a plan here. And the amount of young women that have been impacted through the organization for good, for the stories that they tell me of how just being involved in such a positive environment has changed their lives, in some cases saved their lives. I get chills thinking about it. It's really been a blessing to me to say that, persisting through those challenges and just pressing on with the goal really has yielded some wonderful results for a lot of wonderful young ladies, including myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They say if you can change 10 people's lives, but then compel them to change 10 people's lives, within a generation or two, we could change the whole world.
Change the world.
So really what you're talking about is not just the lives that you change, but compelling them to go and change others.
And we certainly hope that that's what they take away through the environment that we create at USA National Miss, through the whole positive pageantry movement and our slogan, Positively Empowered. That is our slogan because we want them to feel positively empowered to be who God made them to be and to really use that superpower that each of us have inside of us, whatever that might be. Go out there and use that, because that God put you here for a reason. The world needs that. They need to see that light in you. And a lot of times I feel as young women, they get put into a box and told, sit quiet, behave, sit down. But we really need these young women to know it's okay to stand out. And it's okay to find your voice and find your advocacy and overcome your challenges and just keep pressing forward, because whatever it is in you, the world needs, and they need to be free to express that.
And I'm sure, it sounds like you've had a lot of challenges building this passion movement of positive pageantry and building this organization internally, even within the pageantry world. What about the challenges you had to overcome externally? Skepticism, criticism.
Oh my goodness, there's so much. So I can start with myself personally. That imposter syndrome sometimes creeps in. I am the least likely candidate to run a national pageant organization. I am 5 feet tall. I'm not exactly swimsuit ready. I never was a pageant girl. I'm not really what you would think or what you would expect. So sometimes that whole imposter syndrome is like, what am I even doing here? I'm like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. How does this work? But knowing that you are exactly where you need to be, and the confirmation that you get from seeing all the great things that come from it is great. I will say another challenge is I tend to really go all in. I am 1,000%. I'm not a 100% kind of gal. I'm a 1,000% kind of gal, and that has definitely created some challenges for me personally in my personal life, which led to burnout a few years ago. So that was fun, very challenging. So just really, making time to check in with yourself is so important. And that's something I neglected for a really, really long time, because I am super passionate about the organization and the young women and what we stand for. But along the way, I kind of lost myself a little bit because I didn't check in with myself. I was pouring into everyone else, but not my own self. So it got to a point where it's like, who even am I? Do I have hobbies? What do I like? I don't even know myself anymore. Who is this person? So the last few years, I've really been making some intentions to check in with myself, show up for myself every day, make sure that I am aligned with, good health and things like that. So yeah, those were some definite challenges. I nearly died twice, actually. Nearly died twice during this time period because I was constantly go, 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 go. And also the pressure that as an entrepreneur, I think we put on ourselves to excel. Like I needed to do this and it needed to be great. I felt pressure because I'm like, I am representing, first of all, God, because I'm telling people, hey, I feel like God told me to do this. So I can't let him down. And then, I am creating an environment for these young women that are looking up to me. I can't let them down. And it was so much pressure sometimes that, wow, yeah, I just didn't take enough care of myself. So, and that's one thing that we tell these girls, and even my queens, they have a very rigorous schedule. They travel all over the country, photo shoots, charity events, all these different things they do. But I will tell them, check in with yourself. And if you're feeling you need a break, you need to come let me know because you're more important than the responsibilities of this crown. I need you to be healthy. I need you to be well. I need you to be happy. And if those things aren't taking place, it doesn't matter what you do with the crown. You've got to take care of you first. So I think that's a good way to look at challenges is it really sometimes gets you to introspect and to slow down if you need to slow down or redirect if you need to redirect or silence the noise if you need to silence the noise.
I think that's been kind of our theme actually as of late. Like you mentioned, like something that's come up with every single one of my conversations. One, the imposter syndrome, which is like all of us have, and we just need to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Silencing the noise, and the power of pause, right? And healing yourself as well. How that is, it's just like the oldest saying that they have like on airplanes, but mask on you first, right?
we don't think about that, but that is so true. You can't pour from an empty cup. And I learned that when I experienced burnout a few years ago. I got a journal and I'm like, there's something wrong with me. Like I knew there was something wrong with me, and there was. I had no sense of who I was as a person. I had commingled my individual being with this pageant, which it's great that I was pouring into it, but you have to know to have those boundaries, and I had none. So I took out a journal and I started writing, who am I? And I just started looking at prompts, different prompts that I could ask myself just to re-engage with myself. Like I was pouring so much engagement into others, I was not engaging with myself, and I had no idea who I was or what I wanted or even what I was doing as an individual human being. So I kind of felt also a little imposter syndrome there. Here I am telling all these girls, hey, be true to yourself, love the way God made you, do blah, 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 all these things I was telling them, but I wasn't doing that with myself. So I had to say, whoa, I need to pause here for a second and really figure out, like, what am I doing that has led me to feel this way and start correcting. And I think as a leader, one of the biggest things we can do is correct ourselves and be open to know that you're not going to get it all right. Sometimes you're going to get things wrong, and it's okay to say, hey, I kind of messed up here, but I'm going to redirect, and this is the new path going forward that I feel is healthy. And that's what I did. So I've been on a journey of really establishing boundaries. The pageant has stayed the same, but Jackie as a human being, as a separate entity from that pageant, now has a little bit of a social life. I have hobbies that I enjoy. I used to be a great pianist, and as a gift to myself last year, I bought myself a piano because I'm like, you have to spoil yourself sometimes. Like you have to invest in yourself so you can invest in others. So that's been an interesting journey for me, and I think one that not only the girls that are in the pageant that look up to me in a sense, they know I'm very open about this journey of boundaries and self-development and really staying true to who you are. And hopefully my kids too have seen that it's okay to pivot at any age and say this isn't working for me right now. I need to make some adjustments. So I'm hoping that people realize we're not perfect. We're never going to get it all right, but you're never too old. You're never too far gone to redirect and pause and reflect and say, step outside the box and look and say, like, what are the things that are great? What are the things that need improvement? And so taking an inventory and an assessment is always a good idea, not just professionally, but personally as well.
So is that the biggest lesson you would give someone that maybe is struggling with that same thing? Because I know there's so many of us that do get to that point. How do you overcome those challenges and risk? What's your lesson to give them that they should start doing tomorrow?
Oh my goodness. I would say take out a journal, and here's what changed my life. Here's the secret sauce. Here's what changed my life. What are your values? What are your values? If you can't answer that question off the cuff, you need to take out a journal and you need to start writing things down and figuring out, what are my core values? What makes Jackie Jackie? Not the pageant, not being a mom, not being a wife. What makes me me? What are my core values? And then you center your life around those and slowly weed out anything that does not center around those core values. And that really makes life a lot easier, professionally, personally, in every which way. So I would say definitely think of what your core values are. Make sure your daily actions align with those core values. And that way you will always feel that inner peace and that contentment that we oftentimes, as women entrepreneur, have a really hard time balancing everything and really just feeling fulfilled. That will really get you there if you do that. So that's my biggest piece of advice.
That was so inspiring and so unexpected. I had so many other things that I was talking to you about, and it's like, wow, when you threw that you almost died twice, and then also just really self-reflecting on yourself and coming up with values. I think the value side is, to me, it's a very strong point to have. It's understanding who you are and owning it.
Because if you live outside of your core values, you will never live happy. It just can't. You can't. So everyone's core values are different. So you have to figure out what those are for you. And yours will be different from mine because we're all individuals. And a lot of time, it took me about 3 weeks to actually get my list down to about 5 things that are my core values. And now I view my life, my daily life, through the lens of those core values. And if something comes my way, does it fit? Nope. Sorry, can't make it, and learning that boundary, and it's okay to say no, I think, is another good tip for anyone. It's okay to say no. I struggle with that, but I've learned.
Well, I think those are all great lessons, and I'm very thrilled that this conversation went into that part of your life and what you bring with, even like with the pageantry. And that's where I see is you're bringing that to a whole new generation of women that need that kind of positive energy and that positive value set to understand their voice.
One of the things we do at the pageant is we hold different events for the girls where we have speakers that encourage them. Like, I'll get up and speak. We've got speakers. We've had Miss USA's come. We've had Miss America's come. And they will speak to them and just share light with them and really encourage these young women. It's so important to do that.
I mean, Jackie, you have built a legacy with what you've built with USA National Miss.
Thank you.
And your positive pageantry and what you're trying to do. But pageantry, there's some criticisms out there.
Yes.
And there's a lot of, I guess it's kind of at the crossroads. So, right now, in 2025, 2.5 million young women compete in 100,000 pageants a year, which is a lot of pageants.
That is a lot of pageants.
But then the more traditional systems that we are aware of, the Miss America pageants, where it used to have 70,000 contestants in the 1970s, now is down to, as late as 2014, less than 4,000.
Wow.
So are pageants outdated and relics, or is there something more powerful that we can pull from them? And where is their place right now?
That's a great question. I would say anyone that asks, are pageants relevant? I would say ask the girl who's going to college full paid because of scholarships that she has received through pageants. I would say ask the nursing home and the orphanages who have benefited from the incredible amount of support that they receive from pageant girls and their activism and their contribution to all these different social causes. Pageants are very relevant. The skills that you learn in itself there's just no price tag you can put on that. So I have a daughter and I have a son, and I've often said, I wish there was something for my son that could replicate what pageantry has done for my daughter, but there's not. Pageants really teach, like I said, those interview skills, those life skills, the ability to really look at yourself and see yourself as a servant leader. But also it's that scholarship aspect. Like at USA National Miss, we give the 3 oldest queens, which are ages 13 to 24, we give them $10,000 in scholarship money. That's a good chunk of money to go toward their education.
So, some of your previous queens have gone on to be authors, entrepreneurs, newscasters. I'm sure, I know I've got one that's coming that's a doctor.
Yes.
So it has created, a legacy as well as changed, right? And you talk about the nursing homes and that. So is the place that it has, is it positive pageantry that's the antidote? Is that really the difference of what we're seeing as far as that there's still a place? And what does that mean? What does positive pageantry mean? And how do we get that as far as like helping others?
So I think that it definitely has a role in lifting girls up. And when you propel a young woman up, they feel that they can conquer the world and achieve their wildest dreams. I achieved my wildest dreams. I never in a million years thought I would be the owner of one of the largest national pageants in America. That's crazy to me. I can't even still say that with a straight face. But these young girls, they have a lot of goals and dreams, and you've got to give them the confidence to believe that they can achieve those goals and those dreams. And I think that positive pageantry, not just the sisterhood that's built, which offers that support, but also the encouragement that they receive through positive pageantry is the antidote to a lot of times young women they want to stay inside the little box. It does really help them feel that I can do this. I can go out and I can be anything I set my mind to be. As long as you're being a good human being, everything should be fine, right? They have to have that confidence first. They have to have the ability to put themselves out there. They have to have those speaking skills to open doors for them. All of that comes through pageantry.
And let's talk about confidence, because that's another really interesting statistic, is that today self-confidence has plummeted amongst young girls from 68% in 2017 to only 55% today. And, Gen Z, 57% of them say that social media makes them want to change how they look. Yes. And, we have these body imagery issues and stuff. How do we change the narrative on the confidence? And like so, when you talked before about the qualities that made it into a queen, beauty wasn't necessarily one of them. It wasn't a particular size or a particular look or anything like that, But how does this world bring confidence to our younger generation that is flooded with like social media images that are not even real most of the time?
That's
right?
true, especially for the young ones. It's extremely dangerous, honestly, for at our pageant, for our younger contestants, we have no social media requirement. In fact, we prefer they don't have one because we don't believe they should be on social media. For the older ones, obviously the teens and, the Miss contestants, the junior teens, the girls in junior high school, they're on social media. That's just a fact of life. But we place very little emphasis on social media. A lot of times in pageantry, people, like directors, will want the girls to post, because the more visibility, the more promotion for the organization. And I'm not going to lie and say we never did that way back in the day. Please post. But now, most recently, I would say like 5 years from then to now, we place very little emphasis on social media because I've seen the dangers that it has for young women. I think they're not living life in the real world. They're seeing someone's curated reel, someone's edited picture. They're not seeing the real life imagery because it's not always perfect, right? So we only put the perfect moments on social media. And it's a shame, honestly. I think it really is counter to what we should be telling these young women. And with our organization, like, we welcome all shapes and sizes, colors, all of that good stuff is totally irrelevant, because we are looking for a young woman who is just glowing from the inside out, that is engaging. She could go into a room and talk to anyone, that she can make everyone feel important. She can make everyone feel like the queen. And she has to have that confidence first in order to project that out. So when it comes to social media, we really don't place a big emphasis there. I do think it's an issue with today's young women, and there is way too much comparison. And one of the things I often tell our girls when I'm speaking to them at the national pageant or at a state pageant, if they have me and I come and speak, I'll say, comparison is the thief of joy.
My quote. I actually have that on my phone. Oh my gosh, I use that all the time.
I do too, and it's so true. If you start thinking about it like that, it's so true. Comparison is the thief of joy, so don't compare yourself. And I'll tell them oftentimes, when you're in line getting ready to go on stage, don't look at the girl on your left or your right and look and say, oh, her dress is so much prettier than mine, or her hair is so much nicer than mine. Don't worry about that. You just go out there and be authentically you. And so these are the positive messages that we are giving these young girls. I don't know if it can counter the messaging that they're getting from society and from social media, but we're certainly doing our part to counter those messages that they get with more positive messages for them.
No, that's beautiful. And it's so funny. I drive my kids crazy with that quote all the time.
So
like,
good.
I know, comparison's a thief of joy.
It's such a good quote. I have another one too. I tell my kids, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. So you have to ask. You at least put it out there. You never know what door will open, but it's not going to open if you don't ask.
You know, another statistic, just because I wanted to bring it up because I thought this was also amazing, was I think it was this year that every one of the national pageantry was, in 2019, all major U.S. pageants were won by a Black woman.
I love
that. Was
that.
The first time in history
Yeah.
that all of them were.
That was
and I
beautiful.
think that that's where it's become a lot more inclusive as
Yes.
well.
We have girls that win our pageants. I love the diversity that we have. We've had African American, Asian, Hispanic, every ethnicity you can think of has won, because there's no cookie cutter look. It's really, like you said, it's not about beauty. Beauty isn't even on our score sheet, which I think people would probably find that a little weird. But
That's amazing.
Beauty isn't even on our score sheet. The judges are not scoring their beauty. Why would we score beauty? That is where I draw the line, and might, differ from other pageants where I think, like, now that's antiquated and has no place in today's society, judging people by their beauty. I think they're all beautiful. God made everyone beautiful. What are the qualities that you bring to the table? That's what we need to look at. Those are the things that we're looking for at USA National Miss. Not, are you pretty? Is your hair nice? Is your dress sparkly? We don't care about that.
And Jackie, you built more than, a legacy. You built a platform, and it's a platform of power, not perfection, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Because that's what it's about. And building, the confidence of taking on the world and testing your boundaries. And I think what you've built with USA National Miss is going to really impact so many lives to come and everything.
Thank you.
And it's not just wearing the crown. It's what you brought with the sisterhood and what
Correct.
you brought with all of that. How many girls would you say have gone through your pageants?
So I actually keep a roster of all of the girls that have come through over the last 15 years. And the last time I looked, it was like 3,000 something girls.
Wow.
So it's quite a bit.
That's
we have a lot
cool.
of girls that come back year after year too. In fact, we have a lot of girls that it might be their fourth or fifth time coming to the national pageant, just because they're not so much interested in if they win the crown. Sure, they'd love to win that crown and the prize package and the money and all of that is great. But they it's home. It's a home for them. They know that they're accepted, they're loved, they have friends there. It's a positive environment, and they love being there. It's a very unique environment that we've created, that girls love coming to.
Well, thank you for creating such an environment.
Thank you. I love it. It's been really such a joy for me to be a part of what I consider to be God's plan. I oftentimes tell people, if this were a band, God's up there, he's got the lead mic, and I'm in the background, I'm the girl that's dancing. I'm just kind of doing whatever they tell me to do. But it's been so much fun to me to really be able to invest and pour and see how it flourished over the years.
Well, you've done a fabulous job.
Thank you.
Whether you're handing out a crown or mentoring a queen behind the scenes, which you obviously do a lot, you really do shape the presence in every room that you walk into.
Oh, thank you.
So now I want to talk a little bit about stepping into leadership, and with visibility, with vulnerability, and with voice, and kind of talk about some of your experiences, not only helping others walk into leadership, but your own leadership journey as well. So you've helped thousands of women step into their confidence. How did you step into your confidence, or how has that helped you step into your confidence as a leader?
I view myself as a servant leader, and I think that my leadership style is, how do I say this that where it makes sense? My leadership style is to lead with servitude, if that makes sense. You have to be able to step off that leadership platform while maintaining the leadership attributes. And that means that you really come down to work with the young women at their level, not as a superior or as their director, but at their level. You got to get to know them at the human level in the stage that they're at. So I find my confidence by really just engaging with other people. I've always been a fairly confident person. When I was 13, by the way, segue, I used to be a newspaper writer before I did pageantry, and I'm actually doing a little bit of writing now too. It's another thing on my core values that I'm slowly bringing back into my life. But when I was 13, my church had no church newsletter, and I'm like, I'm going to make one. And so I would interview people, I would write their stories, I would put together the newspaper, and I would print it on the church printer, and I would hand it out to everybody at the church. And it was through actions like that that started developing not just leadership, but knowing that if you want something done, you've got to just go do it. Right. Mm-hmm. So I think in order to be confident, you have to believe in your abilities and what you bring to the table. And I do believe that everyone has a gift, and I think mine is interpersonal skills. I can very easily come down from that leadership pedestal to mentor and lead someone right there next to them, not from above them, but right next to them. So I get down in the trenches with them. And in order to do that, you have to be secure enough in your leadership to not say, well, I'm too high up to do that. I'll send my secretary to go do that. You have to be willing to get into it. You've got to be willing to step down from that role while still leading. So it's like this little dance, this little juggle that you do. But I think it's important to do that. And that's my leadership style for sure. And I think it has yielded revenue, or not revenue, but dividends. What's the word? It has yielded dividends in my interactions with the girls that I mentor, and sponsors and vendors and companies that, believe in our organization and invest in us. It's really, stepping down from that high horse that sometimes leaders can be on, and saying like, I'm not going to be on the high horse. I'm going to walk with you, and I'm going to make myself available. And I'm going to be personable, and I'm going to be accessible, and I'm going to be vulnerable. And most importantly, in the pageant world, I would say I'm going to be visible. A lot of times, directors are very behind the scenes, very hands off. I am very visible. I am very accessible. And that has been my leadership style through this organization. And I think the confidence comes from knowing that I am good at connecting with people. That is my strength. So it's good for these girls also to know their strength, or anyone actually listening to the podcast, to recognize your strengths and not be afraid to say, hey, I'm good at this, and really use that to propel that confidence to do whatever it is that you need to do.
And I love your leadership style, and the servitude side of it, and getting down to the different levels. Has that ever been misunderstood, or you've been underestimated, that even down there at that level, that they underestimated you, but somehow your power came through?
Yes, actually, so I have a funny story. This is early on in the days of UNM. I have always led this way. And it's not very common in the pageant world. Like I said, usually like the CEOs are, you don't disturb, do not disturb, they're not accessible. And I actually had a coach, a pageant coach, come up to me at one of my national pageants and say, this pageant is getting huge. You can't be this visible. You've got to be like up here. You need to walk by people and just dismiss them and not stop to talk to everyone. You can't expend your energy like that. And that sat so wrong with me. And I'm like, no, that's not who I am. I'm not going to do that. And she's like, you're going to need to do that. That's the way everyone does it. You want them to think you're a big deal. I'm like, I don't care if they think I am a big deal. I want them to feel like they're a big deal. And they vehemently disagreed with me on that and went on about their merry way. And I feel like, now, looking at the success that we have been able to achieve with UNM, they might be like, oh, maybe there was something to that philosophy.
Yes, success is the sweetest revenge, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is. And I'll never forget that story, because I thought, I just can't imagine making people feel small so that I would look bigger. That just made no sense to me.
So I think I know one of the answers to one of these questions is, how did your leadership style have to change or grow as you became the CEO of this very large organization? But I'm wondering if you're going to say you didn't.
The only things I would say changed are, I do protect my time a little bit more. I've learned to delegate more. So I'm still extremely visible and very hands-on. But I do have a great team that I do rely on for some of the smaller tasks that need to get done that I don't necessarily have to put my hand on. But when it comes to mentoring and working with the girls, that's not going to change. That's just who I am.
So what do you hope with your pageants and the crowns that are going to come on long before? What do you want that purpose to be for them?
We always talk about legacy at USA National Miss. So I'll ask the queens when they win every year, what do you want your legacy to be? And they'll lay out a vision. I want to be the queen that served the most hours, or I want to be a queen that impacted children, or, they'll lay out their passion and their plan. And I try to help them achieve that during their year. And I really hope that every girl will understand that your legacy is not a one-size-fits-all. It's going to be different for everybody. My legacy, what I want people to remember me by, is that I was a servant leader, that I loved people, and I met them exactly where they were and told them that they were perfect just the way they are. They didn't need to change. They didn't need anything. Every girl that comes to our pageant is perfectly capable of winning that crown. It comes down to numbers and 5 judges. It's the luck of the draw. That doesn't mean they're worthy or unworthy. I want everyone to know that they are worthy just by being a human being that God created. And that's what I want my legacy to be. And I encourage everyone to really think about what they want their legacy to be.
I was about to say, that's a great exercise. I think that everybody should come up with what their legacy is.
It is a great, that's one of my prompt questions that I have on my journal, is what do I want my legacy to be? And it does take some thought. It's not something that you would generally just think about. Right. The years just fly by, and before you know it, it's time. Like, I will be retiring in a few months from this pageant. So, time flies. And if you don't have the intention of what you want your legacy to be, how will you ever achieve that? And the time goes by, and when it's time's up, if you didn't achieve it, you have to visualize it. You have to be intentional about what you want to be the legacy. And that's what I tell all my girls. that come up under me. It's like, be intentional, give it some thought. What really do you want your legacy to be? We have queens, for example, we have one queen last year. She wanted her legacy to be that we add a Camp Inspire. Inspire is our platform. A Camp Inspire for the young girls that come through the program. So every year we have a camp for these young girls. And the older girls serve as mentors to the younger girls. And we pair girls together. We pair a big with a little. And we do activities and we do all kinds of wonderful things to connect and this mentorship moment between these two young women. And that was her legacy. And it's beautiful.
It is.
And it was a beautiful legacy, but it's going to be different for everyone. So I think everyone should really give that some thought.
I think that is beautiful. And I do think that, like I said, I want to go down and write my legacy now. I think
Definitely
that's something everybody should do.
Definitely do it. Highly recommend.
So I know we've already alluded to this on, to keep you going, you have to have fuel, right? And so we call this fanning the flames, okay? And I know we've got a little bit of yours in there, but I'm going to ask you a couple of different things on what keeps Jackie going and keeps your fire lit, okay? Do you have a morning ritual or things that you do when you need to recenter?
I get out in nature.
Okay.
I love nature.
All right. And do you have a mantra or affirmation you live by?
I would say what we talked on earlier, if you don't ask, the answer is always no.
Okay. And when things get heavy, who or what brings you back to center?
Definitely my faith and my family.
And is there a piece of advice you turn to often as a mom or as a mentor?
Oh, that's a good one. There's so many pieces of advice that I turn to as a mom and as a mentor.
You can name a couple.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so as a mom, I would say my best piece of advice is never limit yourself. And as a mentor, my best piece of advice is always check in with yourself.
I like that. And then finally, what is your leadership superpower?
I think my leadership superpower is my ability to connect with all different types of people and really form relationships, that interpersonal relationships, I think is my best trait.
Yes, for sure. I can tell that about you. You just radiate when you walk into a room. I mean, you do, and your positivity is just infectious, I would say, which is a great thing.
Thank you so much. I love that.
Okay, so now we come to one of the most signature moments of Spark Sessions, and really what it's all about is passing the torch. And normally we would segment this to what would you say to a younger version of yourself or to, a young girl that's coming in and how you would give them your power and building up that rung. And I think you've said so much with that. But you are retiring in a couple of months. And the USA National Miss is kind of an organism on its own. This is truly your baby.
Yes.
It's your passion.
Yes.
I mean, it has almost killed you.
Yes.
It is like you've made this into something so much more than a pageant. It is a being. So
thank you.
As we talk about passing the torch, those coming behind you to lead this.
Yes.
What advice do you want to give? What do you want to say? What does that mean?
What do you say to someone that you're handing your baby over to?
Yes.
The things I have already said. I'll give you the rundown. Never forget the mission is the girls.
Right.
The mission is not to have the best pageant, although I do believe we have the best pageant. The mission is not to make a lot of money. The mission is not to have fame. The mission is not to be the absolute best, win awards and do all that, which we have. The mission is the girls. And that really is the purpose behind the organization, is impacting and positively empowering the next generation of young women. And that is what I actually have told them. Like, that is my non-negotiable for, me passing on the torch, is the girls have to remain first and foremost at the center of every decision, kind of like the core values we talked about, the core values being for the organization being positively empowering young women. And every decision has to filter through that lens. And that to me is the best thing about passing the torch, is that those conversations have been had and those things will be taking place. So I feel very comfortable that I can take a little bit of a break and maybe live a little bit of a slower life, I will still be involved though. I will still be there to mentor and to speak and do all those things because I love that.
Yeah, I'm sure it's hard to slow you down.
It is, yeah. It is kind of hard, yeah.
Okay, so now the next segment is called the rapid fire round. And these are super easy, super just first thing that pops in your mind type questions. Okay?
All right, let's do this.
All right. Last song that made you feel unstoppable.
Oh my goodness, Beat It by Michael Jackson.
Where is your happy place?
In my garden or in nature.
Oh, I like that. And one beauty queen superpower you could give every girl if you could.
Oh, that's easy. To see themselves the way God sees them.
Oh, that's beautiful. Caffeine fix of choice.
I actually don't drink caffeine.
Oh,
None.
wow.
No, I quit caffeine like 10 years ago.
Oh, okay. Drink of choice.
Water with lemon. Love me
perfect.
some water with lemon.
And that's very healthy for you too.
It is very healthy.
And what's your go-to self-ritual or daily devotional that grounds you?
I definitely go to God in prayer. That grounds me. And I always make sure, this is something new I'm doing, to show up for myself every day in one way or another. It could be the smallest of things. Don't forget to put chapstick on before you go to bed, or, put lotion on. Like one small act of self-love toward myself every day.
I'm going to ask you one other question that's not on here. What is the first song you played on your new piano you got for yourself?
Oh, what was the first song? I think I just composed. I love composing my own music. I don't really play a lot of other people's music, but I do love Bach and I do love Mozart, but I think I just composed. I just sat down and created something, which is what I typically do. I love doing that. It's whatever I feel, like the feeling, whatever emotion I'm feeling, I get it out through the piano.
Oh, that's great. I love that. It's kind of like you're journaling, but with music.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly right.
Okay, so at the end of every Spark Sessions, we end it with really going into what is your true spark. And I think you kind of alluded to this, but what is your spark? What is that one sentence, that one thing that defines you, that value set that you have?
I think my value set, being the center of what I filter my day-to-day activities, big and small, is really what gives me that spark. And also making sure that it aligns with my faith, which is really important to me, but just really living each day to the fullest through my core values and things that I love that make me come alive.
And what's your one truth that gets you through every challenge and every day?
My one truth that gets me through every challenge is that God loves me no matter how many times I fail or when I go wrong or what I do. He loves me and he's pleased with me. And I know that, if he allows me to wake up tomorrow, I can try again and do better.
It's beautiful. And Jackie, you are royalty.
Thank
whether
you.
you wore a crown in pageants or whether you wear a crown now in life.
Thank you so
you have
much.
touched the lives of so many young women and really help them build their voice and their confidence. And I really think that's what Spark Sessions is about, is trying to, how do we build this community to where we are lifting others up and building their strength. So I just want to thank you so much for coming on here, and I've just loved everything that you've said, and your energy is, like I said, it is contagious, which is great. So
Thank you.
We need more positivity in this world at all times.
We do need more positivity. I'm just so thankful to be here, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in to Spark Sessions. Until next time, keep the fire burning.